What's up, everybody? It's your girl, LA Wade, and I am here really getting excited for the birthday girl over here. I'm going to get to her in a second, but welcome to the Cocktale Hour. This is where we have sobering yet intimate conversations that, describe what we are still thirsting for in life and how did we get here? I want to introduce the presenters of the show, which is Business Takeout. They're a not-for-profit organization that seeks to inspire and empower Black wealth and Black entrepreneurship. And I think our lovely guest here, Beverly, has a really good handle on Black wealth and Black entrepreneurship because, Beverly, welcome to the show, first of all.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And happy birthday to you.
Thank you. Yeah.
We're going to have to make a toast, but I want to find out a little bit more about wine before I'm toasting because it's going to be a vibe, and I see wine as a total vibe.
It is.
So I heard that you're a CMS certified sommelier candidate. Can you explain what that means for people?
Yeah, I mean, it's all just like fancy schmancy. It just means that you're able to speak about wine in a learned way and credited. Now, full disclosure, so took all of the courses, all that good stuff, and then the pandemic hit, and then what you do is you write another like really big exam and you get a little pin. I think you guys have all seen the show Somm on Netflix and all that fun stuff. I get quince and blah blah, right? All that. all that has to happen. But then we were waiting 2 years for them to open it up so we can do that because they won't allow you to write those tests, of course, with the pandemic because you're drinking, you're swishing, you're spitting, you don't swallow.
Oh, yes, that would not be COVID friendly.
Exactly. Anyhow, good news, though, is that they finally said, okay, great, we can do these tests now in Canada. And so I'm writing for my PIN on June 8th. Yeah.
Well, I think this is going to happen for you. I think this will be like a test. Well, kind of like a pre-test. It's a study session.
Yeah, love it.
Because I and many of the people watching could learn a lot about a good wine. And a lot of things about wine teaches you things about other parts of your life. And I think you could attest to that. So I'm looking forward to this conversation very much. But you are also heading up something that I think I want to tell people about first, which is the Spice Food and Wine Festival. Tell me all about that and how you got involved with that.
Yeah, so it is a big thing, and it's happening really soon. So May 28th, and as the date draws near, I'm like, whoa, this is really sobering, and it is actually happening.
There we go.
But what I normally do is I go around the city or parts of southwestern Ontario, and I'll find a restaurant that serves one type of ethnicity or ethnic food, whether it be Ethiopian, Eritrean, Jamaican, Trinidadian, Mexican, whatever. Okay. And then I beg the owner, I'm like, hey, can I take over your restaurant one night? And I'm going to take your food and pair it with wine. I'll bring all the wine, I'll sell all the tickets, and we're going to show how you can have injera with your fingers. So, right?
Yes.
And then drink wine and have a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Oh, man.
So, but we would do these things. It'd be like 5 courses, food, 6 wines. And the ticket price, obviously, to do all of that, they were in the $150, $130 range.
Okay.
This year for spring, I was like, I'd love to do those dinners again. Like I like having intimate dinners. I say intimate, it's what 40 of us that get there. But It's nice. I can walk around and talk to people. But at that price point, you can't have everybody, right?
Oh.
Like, let's be realistic, especially given what's happening right now in our economy.
Right.
I said, you know what? Let's do an outdoor festival where the ticket price is a fraction of what we charge for those dinners,
right?
Allowing people to come out and determine how much they want to spend for wines or foods that day. But the point is we'll have a bunch of food exhibitors from different ethnicities. The ethnicities that are underserved when it comes to food and wine pairing, we'll have them there, and also invite local Ontario wineries to come and pour their wines. So now as a festival goer, I can try someone's masala, on a little shrimp or whatever, and then come over to Narai Cellars and try their Field Blenders White and see if I like the flavors and what I've put together.
Wow.
So even though it's a lot of work, I got to tell you, Friday that just passed, we had our call with some of our exhibitors. And at the beginning, I was thanking them for coming along for the ride and being willing to roll up their sleeves and do this with us.
Yes.
I got so emotional because I'm like,
Because that's hard work, girl.
and it's something I'm so passionate about, because I think through food and wine, you break down barriers a lot easier. You know what I mean? And then you have people asking, well, why didn't we pair our curries with Gruner Veltliner before? And
Right.
then the answers to those questions cause us to touch on things in our world history, right?
Mm.
Which have caused such a divide, an elitist mentality, us versus them. And so if only one person comes to this festival and leaves and says, the biases that I had about South Indian food, I no longer have them, because I see how it is relatable to what I do and pairing it with wine. If one person leaves with that,
You good.
happy.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
equity seems to be a big part of what you do as well. Tell me a little bit about, is it Vinequity?
Vinequity, yeah.
Vinequity.
So Vinequity is a Canadian not-for-profit, and we support anybody who's in wine or spirits and they want to further their career or their education. And we support them through mentorship and also through scholarship funding, so they can take these courses. With these courses, sometimes you'll see it advertised, only $1,000. It's fine. But then you go and you have, in order to be successful, you need to be tasting all the time to
Right.
understand wines, to understand spirits, to understand sake. That is where it adds up. So
I see.
Right. So we do provide support in that sense. And Vinequity, it's important for me to say this, was born, like many things, out of the Black reckoning, with the murder of George Floyd.
Wow.
It's run by 7 BIPOC women in the wine and spirits industry here in Canada. And, the thought was, what can we do? What can we do in our space to try to make a difference? And that's where Vinequity, that's where it came from. Yeah.
Amazing. So how did you got affiliated with them, through founding the organization, or you were also a member?
The 7 of us are founding members.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
7 women. It's quite lovely.
So you would be a mentor?
So I'm not a mentor, but what I do is I find people in the industry who are established in their careers and get them to come on board and act as mentors for us. And then the mentorship program is open to anybody who's on our directory, and it's Canada-wide. It's not just Toronto or Ontario. So you could be in BC, which we have. We have people in BC whose mentors are here in Niagara and that type of thing.
Oh, wow. That is an amazing initiative. I wondered where that came from. When I was reading about it, I was thinking, just knowing that I was going to interview you and the little bit that I explored, it opened me up in ways that I didn't expect. So that's a really good wine, I guess, would do that. But so was the wine education.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's true.
Yeah, I was really surprised by that. And just to get all of this other business stuff out of the way until we fully jump in and enjoy the whole wine conversation, I wanted to know more about your direct leadership, and stuff in various organizations, from Fortune 500s to start.
Yeah.
I guess the consultant side of you. Is it marketing?
It is, yeah.
Okay, talk to me about marketing.
I make this joke when I grew up in Kitchener-Waterloo, and I convinced my parents that they should pay for me to go to York.
Just to get away from them?
Because I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer and it's going to be awesome. And they're like, yep, we can support this for sure. Then I went, got in to law school. But then I started to interview people who were lawyers now, like who recently graduated. And a lot of them were working government jobs and making, not a lot of money in their entry level for the government. So I thought, well, that's not what I want to do. And so I left that path and went and did the whole marketing path. So my parents, they were not very happy about that. But I think in the end it paid off because I really found my niche. So starting out, my first job at the university was a director of client services, and then in the end, director of operations. But I did a lot of consulting in between there. And, the work I did consulting back then is very pertinent to what's happening in our wine industry now. Yeah. I would go to media companies and I'd help them to change their strategy, to ensure that digitizing the strategy properly and monetizing it properly, communicating it properly, because now your streams aren't people who are maybe looking up at the billboard or reading your news, like things have
Right.
changed.
Yes.
And so it would be a lot of consulting with that. And so I had a chance to like travel the world and speak about that particular topic. And I say it's relatable to what's happening now in the wine industry, because the way we used to advertise and market wine yesterday is not relevant as relevant today, because the people who are drinking wine
Right.
now more look like you and I.
Yes.
So the ads can't have the, the lovely Caucasian couple out there. I mean, you can have some of that, but your ads now need to be more inclusive.
That. Yes.
Yeah. So a lot of what I'm doing now reminds me of the work I did with media companies. Back then. Yeah.
So I was wondering how your wine education and wine work experience culminated into like the best life ever.
Yeah. No, that's exactly how it came to be.
So I read that you wanted to dispel this, so I thought I would ask it in a different way.
Yeah.
Who is the traditional wine consumer or professional?
So the traditional wine consumer, they would have you believe, it's like middle to upper class, fully, Caucasian family or singles, and that's who they've marketed to. And in their defense, right, the people putting together the marketing plans and making the wine and doing the wine communications, like that's what they look like.
Right.
So they're like, oh, who drinks? Because when you do a marketing plan, you sit down and you have your product, and then you come up with like, this way. You have your product, and then you come up with personas, and you're like, okay, so I see that Bob would really like this because he likes sparkling wine. Bob lives in Cambridge, and so you're gonna make these people like people who you know. And if your exposure and who you know just looks like you, then you're going to market to people who look like you or your friends.
Right.
So in defense of that, that's why we've seen the traditional wine person look like that. Now, with groups like Vinequity, Vinica is another one who works out on the West Coast. We've got people who are trying to change the faces that sit around the table and making these decisions. So, I mean, I keep saying to people, I strongly feel like in 5 to 7, even 10 years, you're going to see that the people making the decisions and putting together the plans, the marketing plans, are going to be completely different. And then you're going to have plans that are genuine and honest. You don't want any kind of appropriation. You don't want any of that. But if you have the right people around the table, I think we're going to be fine.
You're going to be all right.
Yeah.
Let's hope, because marketing can go really left when you're trying to be inclusive. And it's so funny how easily it can happen. It's not even something, a lot of us look at it from the outside and like, they know what they're doing on purpose. But legit, like some people just don't even see it's in their blind spots. They don't even realize how much they have internalized the colonial mindset. So they just can't help but replicate it through the way that they do things. So let's not keep defending it, but I'm just saying that there are many factors involved with marketing something. I'm so glad we're talking about this, because I went to New York, and an upcoming guest of mine, Judy England, she is a co-owner of a company called Fat and Foul, which is a Caribbean style kind of marché setup in New York City. And they have a fridge that has Black-owned wine businesses in their fridge. And I went to the LCBO after going there. You can't get it here. And so it moved me so much that I've been trying to get in touch with these people because I would love them to be my title sponsor. Like even though they don't make cocktails, unless you can make cocktails with a Riesling, you can let me know. This is what I want. And their business is called Black Girl Magic.
Yes.
I've been McBride sisters.
Yeah.
So I don't know who these women are, but I sure hope I get to interview them one day. And more importantly, I would love to be able to distribute that wine here in Canada, because I only had the Riesling, and that's what they were selling at Fat and Foul. And I have to say, it was the most delightful thing I had with my meal. It was just paired so well. And I think they made a point of getting the types of wines that paired well with the types of food that they sell.
Good.
And you sell it you're buying it independently. So whatever you're buying of Black Girl Magic, it goes to them. They're just happy to have it there.
Exactly. Are you familiar with Steve Byfield and the Rye Cellars here in Ontario?
No. I'm a new wine person. I'm not
Okay.
really a drinker very much, but I find wine to be something that's like almost like a gateway.
It is, but I find I don't know, but maybe it's because I study wine. It's like the one thing that I never ever have fear of any kind of abuse. It's so much respect for
Yeah.
the work that goes into the bottle. But Steve is the only Black winemaker we have in Canada, and
Oh,
um, I mean, yes, that's one reason to support. But he makes some stellar wines. I'll be happy to
mm,
share something with you.
yes.
I'll send you something.
Oh
Yeah.
man, I would love that. And he's here in Canada.
Yeah, he's in Niagara. Yeah.
Oh wow, I have to go out to that vineyard. That sounds amazing. He should
There.
do some privatized events from you there. Do you ever
Well,
do anything there?
we did something together for Black History Month, but he's a virtual winery. So we have to go to other locations and use their space. And by virtual winery, what I mean by that is he sources his grapes from different vineyards across the Niagara Peninsula and then makes his wine in someone else's winery. But it's
Okay.
all his label. He's really talented though, because in addition to making wine for his label, he also does so for 2 other labels.
Wow.
So that gives you an understanding of how people are viewing, his abilities. He's really, really good.
Yes, I learned a little bit about this. I think what you're talking about is a distributor. And it was somebody by the name of Kermit Lynch,
Yeah,
and how they've been able to, win awards, and I think he was knighted or something like that.
yeah. Kermit Lynch is like a pretty iconic name. He did a lot of work in the 80s with bringing some really wonderful titles from France over to the United States. Um, I mean, we all read about Kermit Lynch here in Canada, but the impact of his import business very minimal, unless he traveled to the States and put something in your suitcase and brought it back. But
Oh,
yeah,
so it doesn't impact us here.
not as much. But I mean, it's good because a lot of times some of the trends that you see happen south of the border make its way up, and so him starting to bring in Chinon and that type of thing. I mean, I
Yes,
don't know for sure if it had an influence, but I suspect it did.
yes, yes. Now, one of the quotes that you've used was, "No one should be denied the pleasures of vino."
Yes, it's true.
Okay, if no one should be denied that pleasure, I've brought two with me because when I eat a steak, I love red,
Mhm.
but I'm starting to get into this Chianti just for, it depends. I think it goes well with nuts, and I don't know. I'm enjoying it. So this one is more empty. Somebody recently brought me this one. Now for the occasion, let me
Mhm.
see. Can you see?
Mhm. Yep.
Okay. So if with the occasion, it's celebratory, it's your birthday, which one would you go for if you only had those two to choose from?
I think if I'm sitting and I'm having conversation, I'd go with the Suave.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
The white.
Yeah. I
Perfect.
think if I was going to eat something, I mean, I love Sangiovese, so I love Chianti Classico, Brunello's. I love all of those wines. Um, but if it's over conversation, I'd go with the white that you have.
Okay. Well, it's a conversation.
Yeah, because Chiantis they come with really high acidity, which is wonderful for food, in like medium plus tannins, so it's kind of astringent. And so if you don't have anything to help break down that astringency, it might not be like your mouth might get pasty, which is not what you
Oh,
want when you're talking.
yeah. And that's not good.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, no. Okay, so perfect. So now we're gonna just help us get into the wine. I just want to cheer you
Yeah.
on a wonderful birthday. I wish
Thank
you
you.
very many more. I always tell people to reflect, dream, and remain in gratitude. So cheers to you, Beverly, and to the festival coming up on May 28th. Um, if you are going to reflect, dream, and be grateful, what would fall into each of those categories?
Wow. You know, really, that's a really good question. Um, and you're like, yes, I know, Beverly. I put it in here.
That was hot off the press. I forgot it was your birthday.
The challenge with human nature, with us as people, especially if you are one who's driven and want to do things and make a difference, you oftentimes forget to stop and look at what you have already done. Like you're always like, oh, this, always down on what you did, or I should have done more, or, oh my gosh, there was an opportunity here. Why did I say it this way? But today is the time where I stop and I look at what I've done, where we're going, especially with the festival.
Yes.
Like a lot has gone into that, and it's nothing to sneeze at. And it helps too. All day today, and I'm getting emotional. All day today, I was getting lovely messages from friends and family reminding me of that. So
Yes.
yeah.
So how
champagne?
Yes, cheers. Which leads, okay, let's not have you crying at your birthday. Although they are tears of joy.
Yes, of course.
Tears
Yeah.
of joys, and I support you because, not to plug this, right? But I'm doing this documentary on Selena Caesar Chauvin.
Yeah.
And she has a chapter, I think it's chapter 12, where she writes a love letter to Black women.
Oh.
And she sees you. I see what you're doing, and I hear what you're saying, and I recognize it in her book. And all three of us are not connected yet. We understand what it means to write a love letter to one another.
Yeah.
And to say, sis, I see you. And that's the hashtag she has in the book. It's hashtag I see you. And I see you. I see your hustle, what you have been able to accomplish with this festival. I implore everyone to come out and support it, because that's how we're going to be able to continue to see not only representation, but the inclusion of our voices. And that's what the documentary is really about, is can you hear us now as a result of her standing up for us to hear what she had to say.
Yeah.
And I love that you are one of the women that I get to spend a little bit of time on your birthday to remind you that you were seen, and we appreciate all the effort. We've had some people that are watching, wishing you happy birthday.
Oh, lovely.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Steve, who I was talking to you about from Narai Cellars, is actually going to be at the festival as well. So if people who are here haven't, come into contact with Steve and his wines and Niagara, you'll have a chance to taste through and actually meet Steve as well at the festival. Yeah.
Amazing. I think for that reason alone, I would come out. And the way that you've been able to situate it, I've read a lot of the press, and I've seen some of the press about it. You're right when you say people don't understand what it has taken, but it's showing up, and I love it. So when we go to, where is it again? Let people know where it is. Can they still buy tickets? How much are the tickets?
Yeah. So it's at Stacked Market, which is downtown Toronto, Bathurst and Front Street. It's May 28th. It is from the doors open at 12 and we close at 9. You can definitely still buy tickets if you go to springintospice.com. You'll be able to access your tickets there. And there's a range of ticket prices depending on what you want to do. Because we are also offering 3 seminars that day too, for people who want to get like super geeky and sit down.
Oh, wow.
And in the seminars, you also get food and wine in the seminars, like little pairings and stuff. And one of the sessions I'm really excited about is wine and food history and culture. I was talking to someone today about food ownership and origin.
Interesting.
Because a lot of times the origin was in West Africa, but it's become so popular now it's owned by the British. So you equate this dish with the British, unless you know. He gave me a really good example of noodles or pasta. So someone said to him, it's so bad that we don't give Italy the the big ups they need when we make pasta all the time. And he was like, the origin is Asia.
Right.
That's where they got it from. And yes, they made it a thing. Anyway, so one of the sessions is about like that type of thing.
Okay.
Just to give recognition. And then the other session is about how to build your own wine cellar at home. It's not even a cellar, but just having 5 wines on hand.
Yes.
Come over, food pairing. And then the last session is about bridging flavors from food and wine. So it'd be fun.
I'm into this flavor thing because I know that there's going to be about 30 vendors from different Caribbean, African, and Latin American countries.
Correct. Yes. And we also have India represented as well.
Amazing. So it really is. I know the word BIPOC is contentious for a lot of people, but in this case, it's actually necessary because we all influence one another, especially here in Toronto. where we, people think I'm Jamaican just because of how I grew up always hearing the language, right? So
Yeah.
it impacts me. So we all impact one another. And while Black voices are important to be heard because our experience is unique, when it comes to the celebration of wine and food, it's something that we definitely want to have a BIPOC experience for. We win every time with that.
I think so. 52% of us here in Toronto itself recognize ourselves as people of color. And I think that's a very strong message. And at the festival, yes, I want people from the different diasporas to come out, but I want all GTAers to come. If you can get there, come. I don't care where you've come from, your background or your culture. I think it's an experience that we're all going to enjoy.
Yes.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I think. Well, I know for a fact it's the first one in history. So we're gonna make history together that day. So I think for that alone, you should come down.
I love it. Okay, every show I do something called Word. And so I came up with some words that have to do with wine. And so I'm hoping you can either explain it or give me a story about it if it's relevant. Okay, so your first word is tannic.
Yeah. So
I'm surprised. I'm like, of course you know what this is. I had no idea what this was.
Yeah, so tannins are the thing that you get from grape skins. And you can get that from both white and red, but it's more so seen with red because the must, which is like the juice inside the grape, is left on its skins for longer than you would see with white wine. That generally doesn't happen unless you're making like a skin contact wine. But for red wine, the must and the skins stay together for fermentation for a longer period of time. And that's what gives the wine that deep color, so extraction. That's what also gives the wine more texture and body because that tannin is going to come in from that. And that is that astringent or bitter feel that I was talking about with your Chianti. I was saying that grape sometimes can give you like medium plus tannins.
Yes.
So that's that bitterness. So when you have a wine and you're like, my mouth feels pasty, it's probably because it's a very tannic wine. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that because that does add to the texture of a wine, and texture is very important.
Yes, and talking back to the food festival and wine festival, what I read about it is that it kind of breaks down proteins in the meat that you're eating, so it softens the food and then it releases all of the flavors together so that you have a better experience. So that's why I was like, I know why she suggested this instead of the other one, because I'm not eating anything. And when you explained that, I was like, I'm learning already.
Yeah, you're like, I remember that. Yeah, yes. And actually that is yes, tannins help to break down proteins and fats, but acidity. If you don't have medium plus noticeable acidity with that tannin, it won't work. It's the two of them combined. But people always say, oh, tannins, that's all you need to break down the meat. No, it's the two combined. But tannins, yeah.
Okay. I read about something called petrol, which is like the smell of the gasoline in the wine. So do you have a story about this aging process or why it smells like gasoline and I should like that?
So what I will say, petrol is my friend, especially when you're blinding something. So Rieslings, you will pick up that petrol note on Riesling. And why that is my friend, because when I'm blinding something and I'm like, but you have to pretend, you can't just make your assumption or conclusion from the nose, but I'm like, boom, bing, 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 bing. So you know what, when I'm going to do like my Psalm Netflix thing at the June 8th, I want them to give me petrol notes in the wine because I'd be like, yep, I got that.
You know what that is. Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, your Rieslings will have that. But you know what? So that's the nose, but there's other things on the nose too, right? That goes with like some white flowers, great citrus, stone fruit, sort of tree fruit. And then on the palate, Rieslings have great acidity again, so they're wonderful for food pairing. Something that makes on the palate, you'll get like some tropical notes, some apricot on there. Depending on how the Riesling is made, you may get like off dry Rieslings. And that's why people always say, oh, with spicy foods, you must have Riesling, because for a while it was known to be like off dry. And so if you had something that was spicy, like pepper hot, what I'm calling it, you would have this off dry wine, and this sugar in that wine would help to temper the spice in the food. But the people who made up that rule would think cumin was hot, and I right. So that rule, you kind of gotta take it with a grain of salt.
You gotta kind of take it with a grain of salt. Exactly. Well, I was looking up German Rieslings in particular, and it was really easy for me to look at it because they scale it on the six things scale.
Yeah.
From sweet to like dry, I guess.
Yeah. Look at you. A lot of people who are in wine stay away from Germany because the label, German wine label, wine law is very intricate, but you're just rolling in there. Look at you.
Well, I learned it. The person was very, very helpful in explaining it. Yeah. So that's why I can retain this information.
Yeah. Good for you.
Yeah. No, it was good. And because what he was talking about was this pairing with spicy. So you know which ones to pair because based on the sweetness to dry level, then it would help you know which one to choose from it.
I will tell you, I've paired Rieslings before, and I never do, like with our food, and on purpose, I will never do on off dry or anything sweet. I always do dry because I'm trying to prove a point that the people who made up this rule don't truly understand like the flavors and how we cook, and we don't want you to burn your mouth. We don't want to keep the Scotch bonnet seeds in there on purpose for a joke. We don't do those things.
Yeah, because some wines can make it stronger for you, and those are people that aren't listening. I'm sorry. They're not listening to what we're talking about because you can taste the wine on its own, and it can feel like your throat is on fire. It's already so strong. Why would you now go and put more pepper in your throat? I don't understand.
Exactly. And that feeling you're going to get from high alcohol wines. And if the wine is not balanced, because I could give you some wines that are 14.7% alcohol, and that's high for wine. And you would be like, this is really nice, and not notice the alcohol because the winemaker gives us a balanced wine. Everything is, where it needs to be.
Okay, well then that's a good segue into what that is, because I was the same thing that I was watching talked about wines, region, appellation, the name of the wine, the variety of wine, whether or not it's vintage, the producer, the importer, and the alcohol levels. They're saying that these things were what you should be looking into when you're really trying to understand what it is you're drinking. Can you speak to any of those or give stories around your discovery of this?
Yeah, all of that is completely accurate and correct. But I'm not going to sit up here and lie to y'all. Sometimes I'll go in and be like, oh my gosh, that's a stunning label. I'm going to buy it. Look at the label. Whatever. Marketing still works on me.
Yes, marketing does work. Look at the shape of this bottle.
Right? It's stunning.
Like it goes, it's so, I don't know if I'm giving it any justice, but anyway, it goes like this. And it was easy. The other thing for me is it's easy to open.
Yeah.
When I have to use this, I got to get the cork through and do it's a lot of work for me. I'm a princess. I don't have a man around. I don't want it, but I'll get to a good Chianti if I have to.
Well, like this is it, right? If it's worth it, then we'll get to it. But yeah, what you read is completely accurate. Because wines, especially nowadays, back in the day, a wine coming from a wine region was testable. Okay. You knew if you bought a Barolo, it was going to taste like this. You knew if you bought something from Tuscany, it was going to taste like this. You knew it, you just knew it if you bought like a Bordeaux wine, it was going to be like this.
Yes.
But now with climate change and with people having access to other parts of the world, you've got winemakers who are flying around and people sharing their thoughts and ideas, and now coming back to their own regions and making these wines with a bit of a new twist. The natural organic movement also does impact.
I was going to say, yes, about the word that I was going to give you for that was something about biodynamic.
Right.
Sustainable farming.
Right.
Of grapes and things like that.
And low intervention more so. So biodynamic just means that, they didn't use any kind of sprays or pesticides or whatever in the vineyard. Plus, they use a calendar that tells them, oh, it is a good day. It's a herb day. I don't know all the things in the calendar.
It's a spiritual thing.
They look up yeah, and then sometimes they put like, I know I read a story where one winemaker would make anyone that came to visit him do a number 2. Like if you had to do a number 2, he would collect it and then he would sprinkle it in the vineyard.
Talking madness. What are you talking about?
But the point is, they wanted to make sure there was low intervention in the vineyard, which is a good thing because there was a time where people were using like a lot of pesticides, and there was like long-term health effects from that and all that good stuff. So I understand where they're going and wanting to give you something clean in the bottle. But what more so impacts the wine is the low intervention stuff that happens in the winery. So there are people who are like, oh, look at my biodynamic seal. That's so wonderful. And then when they get in the winery, like there, stuff is happening that may not be as low intervention as you would like or think from all that we've done. Anyhow.
Hilarious.
But I think, so for your first question with the labels, because of all of these changes, now more than ever, reading the label actually helps to make sure you take home what it is you're looking for. Like if you like that classic style of Bordeaux, you may want to look to make sure you're not getting something that's got high alcohol, that's going to have like that more of a fruit balmy type character as opposed to the vegetal herbal character that you're accustomed to with old style Bordeaux. So reading the label is a good thing.
Yeah. And there's things to look for that will help you know that you're making a good choice.
100%. Region, grape blend, alcohol. Yeah, all of that.
And also utilize the people at the LCBO. I mean, they work there for a reason. They don't live in your taste buds, but they can be a good reference, is what I think that's the word I heard them say. It's like, I can't tell you what you'll like, but I can tell you what it is and what it will bring out so that maybe you'll know what you like from there.
A piece of advice I give my brother when he goes in, I'm like, just tell them that you like that particular wine that you had last week. And if they know that one, like, oh, I get the flavor profile you're looking for. Just reference something you like.
It's so fascinating. It's like a trade.
Yeah.
It's a trade that you can definitely charge for.
Yeah.
Now, please explain the difference between champagne, sparkling, and white wine, and rosé, and I can go on and on.
Yeah, so champagne and sparkling wine made in the traditional method are technically the same thing, but you can only call a wine champagne if it comes from Champagne, France.
So it is a wine, but it's from Champagne, so therefore it's called champagne.
Right. And this wine, like bubbles, is different than a still wine because of the process that goes into making champagne or sparkling wine done in the traditional method, where there's second fermentation that happens in the bottle that traps the gas, the carbon, that then gives you the bubbles that you end up with in your bottle and in your glass. But all sparkling wine done in this way starts with a base wine, which is like your still wine.
Interesting. Okay.
And then the second fermentation in bottle causes the bubbles to come out. And so you've got some great sparkling wines outside of Champagne that are a fraction of the price. Like if you see something like Cremant d'Alsace, Cremant Burgundy, any of those things that have Cremant in it, means it's from France, made the same way that Champagne is made, but not in Champagne, and therefore
it's a sparkling wine.
Yeah.
So anything that's not made in Champagne but follows the same process is called a sparkling wine.
Yep. And then there's another process of sparkling wine, which is where you get Proseccos from, which is instead of doing the second fermentation in the bottle, second fermentation happens in a large tank. And it's Prosecco. That's why Proseccos as bubbles they're very affordable because they're faster to make. It's easier to make when you're doing them big in bulk in a tank. Cava from Spain is made in the traditional method as well. It's made like how champagne is made, but it's cava, it's from Spain. So those are some good things to know. Like if you are into champagne, it might be good to explore some of those to save on your pocketbook. The other thing I'm going to say about champagne, I know somehow from branding, like things like Veuve Clicquot and I don't know, give me another one of those big names that people like to drink.
The Moettes and the
yeah. Let me tell you something. That's all name, eh? Like I can line them up with some other champagnes, grower producer champagnes that are probably 45% lower in terms of cost. And those champagnes will win out over the Veuves and the Cristals and
Really?
the Moets and the
I
so
think I'm going to hold this to you when I come to the festival. I'm going to give you a blind taste test.
yeah, do it. Yeah.
Which leads me to my other question about palate fatigue. Like, how do you not, like, if you're constantly drinking wine, doesn't it all just start to blend after a while?
It's training. It sounds so dumb, but it is training. It's like doing tastings. I'm a part of a couple of tasting groups, so we'll taste through a bunch of wines. Of course, for spitting, because no one wants to. It's hard to accurately judge a wine if you're been drinking it and intoxicated. So it truly is through training. People do really interesting things. Some people start with red wines, and they do that for this reason, because they don't want to taste a bunch of white wines and then get to the reds, which are, for me, generally harder.
Mhm.
And then your palate is already pounded by acidity and all that kinds of good stuff from the white wine. So,
Right.
yeah, it is a thing. It is a real thing.
Interesting. That's real. You've given some really good information, but I want to go back to before because I know time always sneaks up on me. I want to really understand your journey into wine and who you are as a person. And in particular, do you remember how old you were when you first tasted wine? Because I know I was really young and I thought, this is just disgusting. So usually kids go from this is disgusting to some people become alcoholics. So different, obviously something happens.
Yeah. Myself and my cousins, to this day, we still laugh at the wines that our parents, hopefully my dad doesn't watch this, that our parents were drinking. Like, they were drinking like really sweet, high alcohol, like
Horrible.
yeah. And so as a kid, yeah, we would like sneak a little bit, but we'd like, this is not good. We don't like any of this. And then my appreciation for wine truly came at my first job out of university. I was taking a client out who was from California, and he from San Rafael, and a very big wine drinker.
I love San Rafael. I lived there for a year.
Oh, lovely. It's
Yeah,
wonderful.
it's so great.
So I took him out for dinner, and it was a steakhouse, but we were having like a couple of courses or whatever. And he was like, Beverly, we're going to order 2 bottles of wine tonight. And I'm like, really? It seems really extreme.
It's
He said,
excessive.
no. Yeah, he's like, because this is going to pair well with this, and this is going to pair well with this. And it's hard to find, in his mind, one wine for the entire meal. Like, he was like, that's just impossible.
Yes.
And I was like, well, I guess so. So we ordered these 2 wines, and it was both his passion and his explanation of what each wine was doing to each dish, and my being able to respond and recognize that.
Wow.
I
love
sing
that.
from time to time. So artistry for me and passion that's all it takes for me to be like, yep, I'm going to get into this thing. So that's how I started to really study wine.
Mhm.
But most of it was independent study at the beginning, because it was an intimidating topic. I didn't see a lot of people who look like me doing things in wine. And, I've kind of felt like, I don't know if I would belong in a class, like if should I take a course, and it just took years until you became more comfortable with who you were. And then I was like, whatever, I'm going into this class. I'm going to study.
What I mean by becoming that it crosses over into life. You talked about patience there. You talked about the discovery of self and belonging and entitlement, all from wine.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. There's a lot that you discover from wine. Yeah.
I love it. I've enjoyed the journey myself of going through this experience. I learned about the DOC and the AOC and how to read labels and what a vintage is. And I know people watching didn't learn it with me, but you have to go to the class that you're going to have on May 28th.
Yeah. Come out to that springinthespice.com. That's
exactly. This is how you're going to know. So I wanted to also understand the difference when people say that there's a wine that's smoky, and how do they know whether or not it comes from an oak barrel or not?
Yeah. New oak, you can definitely pick that up in the wine, because it's going to give you, and this is like a really good point for people. I don't know if we're ending soon, but this is like a new magical thing that I recently discovered. Anyhow,
nice.
You get vanilla and baking spices on the nose. Like, you'll smell it, like, oh, this is reminding me of like Like one person's like, I get some black cake. Like, you're things where you
Really?
pick them up. I get clove, allspice, and you get some of that on the palate too from the oak. So that's how, and smokiness is another note that one could find from oak treatment.
Yes.
But one thing I want to say to you guys before we end, in wine school, you're always told like, high tannic, big red wines can't go with any kind of food with spice. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess so. But one day, and this is recent actually, so every day there's new discovery that happens with this. One day I had a South African Cabernet Sauvignon, which is a big, thick-skinned red and lots of tannins and all that good stuff. And I had curry goat. And both of these things are in front of me. And I'm like, well, let me see what happens. And then I had them, and I was like, this is really good. And why it was good is because of that oak that you just talked about. So when you're pairing things, you can either do complementary pairing or congruent pairings. So congruent where you're doing same. Curry goat is not the same as Cabernet Sauvignon, but I do know that in the curry spice itself, right? Some people put nutmeg,
Yes.
put clove, allspice, and these are all things that when you have your Cabernet Sauvignon that's seen oak, you get that as well. So now what happens, you put the goat with this big, thick red that they told you can't, boom, and you're like, whoa, look at all the flavors and all the berries that are coming out in here.
Yes.
That's the wine is helping to soften the meat, and the meat is doing the same thing to the wine. So those tannins in the wine get softer. So now the berries dance more.
Amazing. All this wine terminology, the berries dance.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Big up to the Facebook user who is watching and just saying that this is a great conversation. I have totally loved this conversation because prior to this, I wasn't really that much of a wine person specifically because of sometimes I have a lot of allergic reaction to it. And I learned a little bit today about the sulfates and it being a part of the fermentation process, and that when people say, oh, we're sulfite free, that it's almost impossible to say that when it comes to wine, because that's the process of making wine is some level of fermentation. But that I might have had a wine that had too much sugar, or I'm already just hyper allergic to histamine. Yeah, that might already be in the grape itself.
Yeah.
So, when you're but not all wines do that to me. So to understand the difference is, I think, a journey. And that's what it sounds like you're saying, is that becoming involved in wine is a discovery and an evolution of who you are and your tastes. And sometimes we didn't like wine when we were children, but we might like it more when we're older. So try some wine. Come out on May 28th. I have some taboo stuff because I'm Cocktails with LA, and I always add some little controversy, but it's your fault because you're the one that brought the wine to my attention. I'm reading all this stuff about wine and I'm like, is it just me, or is there some sexual innuendo in the wine world?
Well, some of the wine writers, yes, they use terms, but we're trying to get away from that.
Oh, are we? Because I thought it was delightful. But at the same time, if you look at it through that lens of, misogyny and patriarchy, I can completely understand why you would want to move away from that, the legs on wine and grape body and all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You want to lay the wine down. I heard somebody say today, I was like, what the hell does that mean, lay them down? And somebody else said wine wasn't just about monogamy. If you're into monogamy, then you don't want to be a wine drinker because it's definitely a polyamorous feeling.
Right. They're probably just trying to sensationalize to sell something.
You don't look impressed. You gotta swirl. What does the swirl do? It releases the scents or something?
The aromas, exactly. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I watched I think I'm really into wine right now. Because this person did this shtick. I will call it a shtick because I don't think people always do this. But they chose like 7 different fast foods.
Okay.
Like McDonald's. They paired a fish fillet and they put escargot on the fish fillet and then drank champagne from France with it and said it was a whole vibe.
And I guess that would be good. I think I would just feel nauseous from the food, but
the food might make you sick, right?
Yeah. But I do, and I have 2 or 3 really good friends who I use as guinea pigs I will definitely have them come over, and I'm like, okay, we've got 6 wines we're going to taste today, and you're going to eat it with this dish. You let me know which one does wow for you. Because it's one thing for me to sit here and go, this is amazing.
Right.
But then I have guinea pigs, my friends, and I'm like, hey, drink all these wines. They love it because they're like, yes, free wine. But I'm actually trying to get information from them. So I will do the reverse of that person and have multiple wines in like one dish to just kind of figure it out.
Right. Why do you think, I mean, I think I might know the answer, but I'd rather you answer it. Why there isn't a lot of wine producers in the Caribbean?
Climate is a big reason. It's just too warm, right, to grow grapes there in a sustainable way. Now, with that being said, I've not gone to every single mountain range in the Caribbean. So there might be some cool pockets there, like how you find in Argentina and Salta and so on.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's too warm.
I see. Oh, I always have such a wonderful learning experience watching your show. Who knew there was so much to wine besides pairing it with meat or fish? Absolutely amazing. Well, let me tell you, that is due to Beverly. Because, and thank you for saying that, Sharon. That's really nice of you to say. I wonder what is next for you, or is this all that there is for you in your purview?
No, someone said to me, who's also in the industry, they were like, oh, with what you're doing, you're really pigeonholing yourself. Because I'm not saying, I'm gonna pair this wine at a French bistro tonight. I'm like,
now I gotta pour more for that comment.
People don't need me to pair wine at the French bistro because you've been doing that for many years, right? You don't need me there. And I get that going into a French bistro, you'd probably be able to charge more for your services, and they'd say yes faster because pairing wine with their food is what they do. And so you can sell services there. But honestly, I want to continue this journey. I want to continue the conversation, and I actually want to help small restaurants who are owned by people of color in different ethnicities to build out their beverage program, to build their wine lists. If anybody on here has run a restaurant or works in a restaurant, where you make your money is the alcohol.
Right.
So if your beverage program is one where people are, pouring the wines up to here, or not pouring wines at all, or free pouring alcohol, things like that, we're leaving a lot of money on the table. And plus, I would like for our restaurants to have a wine list, not extensive, that's not your focus, but instead of me walking in and you saying, oh, I have a white and a red, like a nondescript white and red, like I some thought to what happens in the kitchen should go into the wine. So all that to say, my next step is working with our restaurants to see how we can improve their beverage program and get some wines in there that represent and focus on their food and highlight their food.
I love that. I hope you can tie it into the Vinequity as a mentoring partnership to teach the person that you're actually mentoring how to go through that process while they learn with you as you're talking to the restaurants to establish what are the barriers.
Yeah.
Almost like to learn what's happening.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a massive one. What's funny? You brought me back because of the festival. A lot of us who are senior members on the festival leadership team, we do mentorship with the youth extension in Scarborough of the Boys and Girls Clubs. These are people who are 13 to 29, according to the government regulation in terms of what a youth is. And it was so interesting to me to walk in there and see how many of them were interested in the food and beverage programs in the industry at young ages, like 18, 19.
Yeah.
And so to what you just said, yes, there is room to take people even at that young age and walk them through what we're doing and through the industry, because the more support they get and the more they see people who look like them early on, the less fear they're going to have.
Exactly.
There are jobs that come up today, and a lot of people who are qualified for these jobs, overqualified, but something stops them. Like, you're still saying to this person, okay, I'm going to send you into this world which doesn't look like you. I don't know how safe it's going to be. There might be some bias. Oh, there might be some racism. Good luck. Not everybody wants to take that on. And so that's something we have to definitely work on. But you and I
you make a really good point. And I think about, was his name Steve?
Yeah.
Like, poor Steve has to carry the entire community who's like, well, you look like me. You should be doing this and you should be doing that. And Steve's just like, yo, I just got here and let me just figure this out for a second. And find my voice. And I think that also coincides with the documentary that I'm doing, in the sense that we put a lot of pressure on our leaders to be able to carry the brunt of what we are lagging behind with. I think if we are more self-accountable and become more curious within our own experiences, like I was, you know, you can open up your own doors a little bit, and then you can network with them. Because I think Steve would be more open, and yourself would be more open to a conversation where you've at least done some of the work.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I always say to people, time is currency. So you don't want to.
Right? You don't want to waste people's time.
Yeah.
Be respectful of people's time, 100%. I love this. Thank you so much for sharing all of this information with me. How do people reach you?
So Beverly Crandon. I'm not very creative with Instagram names, so you can.
I mean, that is your name.
Yeah, I know. Everybody has like fancy names. This is Beverly Crandon. You can just find me there on Instagram. But
does the festival have an Instagram for itself?
Spring into Spice.
Spring into Spice. Okay.
That's even simple. The website, springintospice.com, and the festival is the Spring into Spice on Instagram.
And it is this upcoming Saturday, well, not upcoming, but it is upcoming.
Don't give me a heart attack. It is not this Saturday.
It's not this Saturday. May 28th.
Yeah.
From 12 to 9 p.m.
Yeah, at Stacked Market. And tickets, we're selling tickets really up until the Friday, like the day before. So
you have like a link tree through your Instagram that people can find. Well, see, Beverly, they'll be able to find Beverly Crandon for sure. Thank you so much. I kind of asked the question of what you thirst for by asking what's next, but do you thirst for anything in particular in life?
You know what? A lot of it has to do with, especially with the climate in the world today, a lot of it has to do with breaking down barriers and getting rid of biases and giving people a playground or an area where they feel safe to have those conversations. And I honestly think food and wine, someone said this to me, he's like, food and wine is the one thing where we have center stage multiple times a day in someone's life.
Yeah.
Like I think, I mean, I'm not making big policy changes, but I think this approach will help to get rid of some of the bias that we have using food and wine to have those conversations. So to me, like if I didn't need to pay a mortgage, like this is all I would do is have conversations about this.
Well, you're going to pay your mortgage because the festival is going to go outside of the borders. And once it hits the US, you know you're going to do well. Yeah. There's no question in my mind. I'm happy to lend whatever support that I can because you've definitely piqued my interest. And now I want to encourage it for others. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. Yeah, yes, cheers. Yes, cheers. Oh, I have one more selfish question. What's the deal with ice wine? It is so sweet. And they call it dessert wine, but the dessert is sweet. So why would I now want to pair it with that? It's a lot.
You know, the easy pairing for dessert is sweet wine.
Really?
Yeah, because it's like and like, same. And that way, because if the wine is not as sweet as the food, the wine is going to seem like tangy and sour.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, so you want them to be the same. Food, wine, and music. Boom.
Yes, absolutely. Well, yeah, there's a DJ at the event, right?
Yes, we have 3. Carl Allen.
I don't know him, but I know of him.
Yeah, Beats United Radio and Junior T. They're all playing.
Awesome. It's going to be an amazing event. Stacked Market is Front and what?
Bathurst.
Front and Bathurst. Yeah. Okay, 12 to 9, May 28th. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
This is another great cocktail hour, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I think this was an intimate and sobering conversation, but I'm not sure how sober I'm going to remain at the end of this bottle of wine. I'm literally by myself drinking wine. But I wasn't for your birthday, so happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
God bless you. Dream, reflect, and remain in gratitude. And I give the same advice to all of you. See you next Monday.
Cheers, everyone.
Peace. Bye.
If you enjoy our programming and want to help support Black entrepreneurship, please donate today. www.businesstakeout.com/donate.